Welcome to Information About God. Just get in the car, Tannen. Today's your lucky day, said the old man to young Biff in Back to the Future Part 2. Yeah, young Biff, thanks to the sports almanac that he received, enabled him to become a very wealthy young man, the luckiest man on earth at that time. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a book like that foretold the future? Well, do we have that in the Bible? That's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at, is the Bible reliable, and is it really from God? And if it does foretell the future, and if it does prophesy future events that actually happen, then that would seem to indicate that it is probably from God. So, or from a supernatural source. So that's what we want to look at. There are actually many, many examples in the Bible. We're going to take a look at one today, one in particular, where there's some good evidence, and we're going to lay that out today. But there are many examples in the Bible of prophetic events that did come to pass, and some that haven't come to pass yet. But let's go ahead and get started. To lay the background for today, the ancient Jews, the ancient Israelites, were taken captive, and they were under the control of other nations, such as Rome, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, etc., on a number of different occasions, unfortunately. This is one today. We're going to take a look at Nebuchadnezzar. Now, he was from Babylon, also called Nebuchadnezzar II. He lived approximately from 630 to 561 BC, and he was the king of the Babylonian Empire. He ruled from about 605 to 561 BC. Now, Babylon at that time, no, not the movie Babylon, but the actual empire was around the area of modern-day Iran, Iraq, that region, just to give you an idea of where we're talking about. So now, Jeremiah, he a prophet in the Bible, he prophesied in chapter 25, the whole land will be a desolation and a horror, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. This is very, very interesting. A very specific prophecy. The king of Babylon will conquer these nations, including Israel and surrounding nations, and the Israelites will be taken away for about a period of 70 years. Very specific. Well, what happened? History records that around 606 BC, Nebuchadnezzar and his armies, they did conquer that region, including the ancient Jews. And there were some deportations, people taken away from that area of the Middle East to Babylon. Now, we know that, we don't have time to get into that today, but from the book of Daniel, Daniel was one with his buddies Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were taken away also at that time. So now Jeremiah goes on to say, it will be when the 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation for their iniquity. So Jeremiah is prophesying from God that Babylon will conquer Israel, will take people away as captives, but then God is going to punish the Babylonians for that. So Micah, prophet as well, goes on to say essentially the same thing in his writing in chapter 4. You will go to Babylon, there you will be rescued. The Lord will redeem you out of the hand of your enemies. Now let's back up a little bit. And this is where things get interesting. The book of Isaiah, written from approximately 740 to 680 BC. So Isaiah was a major prophet, had a lengthy ministry. He wrote a prophecy. I am the Lord who says of Cyrus. Now, just on the timeline, this is backing up. This is before Cyrus was even born. He says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd and will accomplish all that I please. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt. And of the temple, let its foundations be laid. So Isaiah prophesying that this Cyrus guy is going to come along sometime in the future. Nobody had heard of him yet. And he's going to rebuild Jerusalem, and he's going to rebuild, the people are going to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. Now, this is interesting because at the time Isaiah was writing, the temple in Jerusalem were still there, were still standing. People had not been taken captive yet. So, interesting prophecy. Now, just taking a quick look in Isaiah, because I had this question, you know, is this Cyrus? Is this specific to Cyrus? Is this just what's the Hebrew word here? So it's always good to go back and take a look. What is the actual Hebrew word, or Greek if you're looking at New Testament. So in the Strong's Concordance, the word here, Kores, or pronounced Koresh, typically is translated as Cyrus throughout the Bible. In 2 Chronicles chapter 36, same Hebrew word translated as Cyrus. Ezra 1, chapter 3, chapter 4, also in Daniel chapter 1 and 10, same Hebrew word translated as Cyrus. So who was Cyrus? Okay, yeah, remember we were talking about Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon. Cyrus, also known as Cyrus II or Cyrus the Great, he was a king of Persia, which is around modern day Iran. So people of Iranian descent, they want to call themselves Persians. That would probably actually be accurate. So anyway, he conquered Cyrus and his armies conquered Babylon in 539. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar had been in charge in Babylon. So Cyrus comes along in 539, conquers Babylon. You can actually see the tomb of Cyrus. So very good historical evidence for the existence of Cyrus, and we're going to see more in a second here. But you can go to Iran today, see the tomb of Cyrus if you wish. So now we're moving up a little bit more close to the modern time. In 1879, a discovery was made in Amran, Iraq, which is not very far from the border of Iran. So it's in that same region where Babylonia was, where the Assyrians were, where Cyrus was, near the modern day city of Amara. An excavation by Hormuz Rassam was found that what is known now as the Cyrus Cylinder. It's an ancient clay cylinder, approximately 23 centimeters or 9 inches in length, dated to around 539 to 530 BC. So there's the cuneiform writing on here. Interesting. You can look at this. The British Museum actually has a lot of information on this on their site about this cylinder. But cuneiform, just real quick, what they would do in the ancient times is they would take wet clay before it had dried, and they would press into it with something that was similar to a chopstick with a kind of a beveled or a sharpened end, and they would press into it and make these little designs. You can see those in more detail. We won't go into it here. But anyway, that's how this was written. There's quite a bit of writing on here. And again, the British Museum has translated this, but some of this for our purposes today. Some of the writing indicates, quote, I am Cyrus, king of the universe, the great king, the powerful king, king of Babylon. Kind of standard stuff for conquering kings in the ancient world, puffing themselves up, talking about how awesome and wonderful they are. So, but he goes on to say, very interesting, I sent back to their places, to the city of Asher and Susa and et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into all those, but he's basically saying he sent people back to their homelands. And then he goes on to say, whose shrines had become earlier had become dilapidated, the gods who lived therein. He sent people back and he allowed them to set up their temples again and worship their own gods. And Cyrus goes on to say, I returned them unharmed to their sanctuaries, make them happy, and may all the gods that I return to their sanctuaries ask for a long life for me and mention my good deeds. So Cyrus is covering his bases here with all gods and say, hey, listen, I let your people go back and worship you and set up your temples. And that's what he's saying. That's what's on this cylinder that was found in 1879. And translation was by Irving Finkel and again in the British Museum. So this matches up exactly with what we find in the Bible. In 2 Chronicles, a historical book in the Bible, it mentions this is what Cyrus, the king of Persia, says, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem and Judah. And the people may go back and their God may be with them. So that's what is written in Chronicles. Ezra came along later and he wrote a very similar thing. Matches up with the Chronicles, matches up with the Cyrus cylinder, the clay artifact. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, remember Jeremiah we were looking at, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make that proclamation to allow people to go back basically to their homelands and to set up their temples again. So this is recorded in the book of Ezra. So the Cyrus cylinder artifact, which was discovered, matches up exactly with what we find in the Bible, in the book of Ezra, and Chronicles and other places. So let's do a quick timeline recap, and we're almost done for today. But just to give an eye, nose, I'm throwing a lot of dates out today. But the book of Isaiah, written approximately 740 to 680 BC. Nebuchadnezzar comes along. Babylon conquers the Israelites and surrounding people around 606 BC. Some deportations back to Babylon. Jeremiah prophesied around the time 627 to 586 BC approximately. Then Cyrus, king of Persia, comes along around 539, conquered Babylon, and allowed the people to return. Ezra, written about that same time, around 539, 537, in that range. So this is an indication here, among many, and I hope to put out some additional videos on some more, but indicating that the Bible is supernaturally inspired. We find prophecies in there that did come true. They were prophesied in advance. They came true. We have the historical evidence. We have the archaeological evidence. The Bible is trustworthy. For additional videos, also check out Inspiring Philosophy.